a theory on the spring pocket kit. Leaf spring used to mount right out here and run outboard of the frame. Now we have this pocket that I will notch the frame out. It'll sit down in the frame, and then the leaf spring will be mounted in here. So first step is I have to locate exactly on the frame where this is going to go, using the existing hole where the leaf spring was mounted through. I'll center that in there, and then I'll figure out where that is, maybe cut a template off the top of this thing so I know exactly how much to cut off the frame. It's going to be, it looks like it's a hair narrower. Pretty close though. Yeah, there's a little wiggle room on each side, so we got to locate it, notch it out, and then weld it in. So obviously one of those on each side, and then there's a little different scenario that goes on in the back. We'll get to those soon, hopefully. All right, so we got the frame cut out and the pocket fit in pretty good. Had a little trouble getting it flush here. It hits on the bottom. I had to actually grind a little bit of the back side of this to get it down a little bit more. But with that flush there, you can see we are a little proud here. And here on this side too, but if I knock this down, then this isn't lining up right, and then plus this rocks up. So I think that's what we're going to go with. I'm getting ready to tack it in place. Once it's tacked in place, I will decide I can either grind some of this off, or I'll just weld it like that, and then grind it, kind of grind it or blend it all together, and then that just becomes the new line. These down here, I will slice a little bit further, and then I can just pound the frame down and weld that right there. So overall, it's a pretty good fit. This hole here, that's where the old spring hanger was, and it just kind of ripped out some metal there. So I will have to kind of patch that in, or just try to kind of weld it in probably. Once I tack it, I'll squeeze it all together, tack it really good. I'm not going to weld it solid until I do the other side, because I want to run a rod straight across through both sides of these. So I'll get like a 6 foot or 5 foot piece of 1/2 inch rod, so that when I do the second side, I can make sure it's not cattywampus or whatever. So that's the theory with that. So I'll get this one tacked. That's probably about all we're going to do tonight. And then hopefully tomorrow or soon, I'll get the other side tackled. All right, next day, back out in the shop, still working on the spring pockets. I got one side I got it tacked in. It's not mostly in, but it's tacked in. Let me flip this around. So yeah, the first side is in place and just tacked in. I came out here a little bit ago. I've been messing around helping my son work on his door. But I got this laid out where the second one's going to go. I stuck that all thread through the holes to kind of get lined up. And that's why that one's only tacked, in case I got to move something. But basically I'll make sure the second one just lines up with that one, so I shouldn't have to move it. But so we'll get this hole cut out and then start shoehorning that pocket in there. It was a bit of a rodeo on the other side. The frame's got these little access holes here. That's where the leaf spring was mounted before, and that's where it's gonna, well, it was mounted on the outside before, but they gave you that hole to get to the bolts and stuff. So the bolt's gonna go right through there, but it has a lip on it on both sides like that. And so the spring pocket won't actually fit in there without grinding away some of this lip. So I gotta cut this out, grind that away. And I don't know if you can see it on the video, but the frame actually kind of tapers. It's like 3 3/8 inches wide here, and not even 3 inches wide here. And well, it's barely 3 inches wide, and that pocket is 3 inches wide. So pretty much I'm right to the very edge. And that's how it was on the first side too. I had to kind of do some finagling to get it in there. But we'll start throwing sparks and see what happens. Alright, so I got the initial cut done. I haven't tried to fit the pocket in there yet, but I just got this cut done. You can see the frame inside. Got a little surface rust, but she's in pretty good shape. So here is the little lips I was talking about. I gotta grind these off of here on each side to get the pocket in there. And then initially of course I made the cut. See my mark there. I'm probably going to be back to that mark, which is pretty close to that hole there, but I tried to make it a little tight. You know, I can trim it up. I'd rather have it too tight and then trim it to fit, then make it too big in the beginning. So let's try to fit the pocket in there and see what happens. Alright, as suspected, it's a little tight in there because of those little lips on those holes that are cut into the frame. So I'm going to pull her back out and do a little grinding. I can't really even reach a grinder down in there, but I have a little die grinder, and that seemed to do the trick on the other side. So let's see what happens with that. Okay, I just checked my fit, and it's pretty good. The hole's still a little too short, and also I stuck my rod back through and took a measurement, and I had to sneak this way just a hair, so that's why I make it a little too short to begin with. So I took maybe an 1/8 inch more there, and then also it looks like I got a you know, some welding slag or something from when they welded the frame on the top there. They must have burned a little hole and sent some weld through there, and that's keeping it from bottoming out in the frame. I tried to chisel it off there because I can't really reach my grinder in there, but it's on there pretty good. So I guess we'll have to get the die grinder back out and see if I can shorten her up a little with that. So the die grinder did the trick on that little piece of welding slag or weld, whatever it was. So let's try to fit her back in there. Alright, so now it looks like we're bottoming out. Before it was sticking up a little bit because it was hitting that weld. And like I said before, we're a little tight back here. Gonna try to do a little poundy on it, see what happens, and I may probably have to trim a little more there. Alright, a little more cutting and grinding and hammering, and I got her in there as best as she's gonna be, I guess. Well, I mean, it's good, it's right, it's just stuff needs trimming a little bit. So I got these both lined up. There's no binding. Pretty good free play. I mean, let's go through there. I pulled the measurement from that rear cross member to the all thread on both sides, and it's right on the same thing, assuming all that stuff's square. But the fact that, you know, there's no binding and the measurements are the same, I think I'm going to go with it. They both look like they're centered in this hole about the same, where the leaf spring's actually going to mount in the frame, that hole in the frame. So they're both looking good there. The only thing that doesn't fit great, and it was the same way on this side, you can see the pocket kit is a little proud of the frame, and it's maybe a little more so on this side, but it is bottomed out right in there. I actually had to grind it a little bit off the bottom of the pocket kit to try to get it to go down a little further, but that's going to be fine. You know, I'll weld this solid, and then we'll see how it looks. We'll probably grind this down a little bit so it all kind of flows a little better, and that'll be that. So we'll tack her in place, and then yeah, weld them all around, I guess. Alright everybody, Brad back out here in the Montana garage a couple days later since my last video, working on this frame pocket kit down here on the 55 Chevy frame. I got the first one tacked in place, second one's cut in, but I need to tack it, and then we'll do some welding on both of those and start figuring out how to modify the rear leaf spring hanger area. Got a little more room in the shop today, which is kind of nice. As soon as I get this tack welded, I can slide this frame over a little bit. I got some blocks underneath that kind of supporting it. 57 Chevy's out in the driveway. I took her for a little burn today. That went pretty well. It was kind of fun. But I got to get some work done, so let's get to it. All right, little update on the frame pocket. Got this one welded all the way around. I was just doing it in little short bursts and bouncing back and forth because I didn't want to get it too hot in any one spot. Some of the welds are pretty good, some of them don't look that great, but hopefully they're good enough. I'll do some grinding on there and see if we can make it look a little nicer, but I think I got some good penetration and stuff's gonna hold. So I gotta grind that, and I still gotta weld that one over there. I'm gonna move her away from the 55 now that I got this one welded up and take that block out of there. All right, back on the pocket kit, a little update. So here's one side welded, and then this side I have ground down. So the pocket kit, like you can see over here, top by ugly welds, stuck up a little bit above the frame. It was the same way over here, and so I had to grind this down, and then I just kind of blended the welds in. You can see it was a little proud there also, and then I just left the welds right there. So not too bad. I think she's gonna stay in there. I may throw some welds around these holes a little bit too, I guess, inside outside. Then there's a couple holes down here. So time to grind the next side. Okay, took a little break, cleaned up the shop a little bit, and had my daughter come out and help me flip the frame over. So now I got it right side up and on some jack stands. Pockets up under there, each side. So now what I have to do is put the leaf spring in the pocket. That's the stock leaf spring. I'm gonna get some lowering springs, but I'm assuming they'd be a direct replacement, so I should be able to use this to figure out the right length here. And then this is the rear spring hanger. So we gotta figure out where it goes. I have the two-piece frame. So you can see there's basically two C-channels, and then they're welded every so often from the factory. So this is called the two-piece frame. And so because of that, I need to grind just a little less than 1/8 inch or so, probably off of this outside piece here before I weld it. So we got to figure out where it goes using the leaf spring and some measurements. I'll grind this down just a hair, and then we'll burn that on. And then we'll do the same on the other side. And then you have to notch the frame so that your shock has some, or your spring has some clearance. So that'll be the final step. Coming along. All right, another update on the spring pocket kit install. I should have updated before I flipped the frame over, but I once again have flipped the frame back over. So this is again now the bottom side. So here's the pockets up the front, the shock bar. And I just got done mounting the rear spring hangers. So there's one of these guys on each side. So we just got done measuring, figuring out where those go. We had to grind one side a little shorter for the two-piece frame, and then buzzed them on. Again, kind of some ugly welds, but it's penetrating. I think it's gonna hold. And then my son did this one. So anyways, we got that. So now the next part of the project is you have to notch this rear frame section. So something like this is going to happen. I'm going to cut that out, back up, and then, well, here's a drawing. There's the instructions they give you. So we have to notch this out. And then here in the kit, you have this guy that will go in there. It's go over on this side so I got more room. Let's see, it goes with, yeah, I think that was for the other side. So this side's gonna go like this. So we gotta cut that part of the frame and then put that in there. And then we'll be done. Well, one on each side, obviously. See how it goes. Hey everybody, Brad back out here in the Montana garage. It is about 10:30 at night. I made a post on Instagram this morning at about 7:30 that I was going to get back to work on my spring pocket kit on the 55 Chevy frame over here. Got some distractions during the day, so I never got around to working on it. I thought I was going to work on it all day, but that never happened. But I got a couple hours here at the end of the night that I'm going to spend on it. So let's take a look and see where we're at. So now I'm getting ready to cut in the rear notch. You see I did some measuring, got some lines on there. This is the guy that goes in there, so I'm getting ready to make some sparks. And I think I got that all where I want it. So we'll cut her out of there and see what's next. So hey there, little buddy. Got my new shop helper. This is Moose. He likes hanging out here with me. Anyways, I'll set a camera up and we'll get to work. All right, just got done throwing some sparks. Cutting this little notch out here. That thing's still a little warm, actually. Gotta be careful grabbing freshly cut metal with your fingers, I guess. All right, so here's what we cut out. We said this is the little rear notch. This is the plate that's got to go in there, so we got a little trimming to do. Have to get in here with the die grinder. Clean that up to how it's supposed to be. And we want this corner to be 1/4 inch ahead of where that tab sits, it says. So looks like I might have to trim a little more forward, and then there'll probably be a little excess on the top of each side that I have to trim off, even once I get it where I want it. And then over here on the inside, means this notch goes right where this little frame intersection is. It won't quite fill this little spot right here. So I saw this on a different guy's post. This is kind of the mark I wanted to cut, but I left this little tab on here. Once I get everything cleaned up how I want it and get it tacked in place, then I can fold. This tab will kind of fold over to help fill that little gap there, I guess. A little better anyway. So a little cleaning up the cut to do. Figuring out exactly where we want it, and then we'll get the old buzzy machine out and melt some metal. All right, we're back again to take a peek at what's going on. So I got my welds. I was having some issues with my welder. The wire feed was really kind of sporadic. I think I determined it seemed like the torch cord or whatever it's called, I had a couple twists in it and didn't realize it, and I got that straightened down, then I made it a little different. So some of the welds aren't too bad. The first few, when the wire was being kind of funky, it's good to have an excuse, right? I'm still learning how to do this, but I think I'm getting them melted in there pretty good. So then I kind of trimmed up this other edge here where I had left it long, and you can see I kind of folded it in. Let's look on the other side. Moose is checking it out too. What do you think, Moose? Look good, careful, that might be hot. You'll figure it out eventually. So this is where I shaved that, folded it over to try to fill that gap. If I would have just cut that, then there'd be kind of a little funky gap there. So now I got to weld the top. Also there was some excess here that I had to trim off, so I ground that off. So now I just got to weld around this little bit. And that'll be it for the welding, and then we'll grind her up and make her look a little better. Bring it back after that's all done, see what she looks like. All right, so there we have it. One of the rear frame notch inserts, or whatever the hell they're called, installed. Welds are ground down and flap disked a bit. I'm not going for perfection, but I think it, turned out fairly nice. So basically, we went from that to that. So that allows The rear spring hanger mounts through the hole down here on the bottom, and then basically then the spring will ride right here, and the notch just gives it clearance. So rear notch, and then the front pocket. So this side's done. I still have to notch this side, and then the final thing I have to do for this little install to be complete is I have to weld new, my rear end is hiding under the chevel behind the square body door over there, but you got to weld new spring perches because the springs are obviously narrower. So that'll be the next couple things. Let's see what they give me in the kit for that. Yep, so here's the kit. So here's the new spring perches that go on the axle housing. Cool, well, it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm glad I got that done. It took me probably twice as long as somebody who knows what the hell they're doing. But we got her did. And hopefully I'll get back out here tomorrow and do the other side. I think I'm going to call it a night for tonight, though. Hey everybody, time for another update. It's been a couple weeks since I've been out in the Montana garage. Moved some junk outside to make room in the shop here to do some work. So I'm still fighting with this, or I'm not really fighting with it. I'm just working on the pocket kit on the 55 frame. I just haven't had much time to work on it lately, and I'm finally getting it wrapped up. Let's take a look. I think last update I had this side done. I had this side maybe welded in. So today I ground the welds down on that side. I had also just kind of welded in some random holes that were on the frame from grinding off the old shock bar and just where the leaf springs were mounted before. I think also one of the last things I was trying to do was fix this little rip or hole here. Let's look from this side. I think I talked about trying to fix that, but it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was beating on her pretty hard with the old hammer, and it was making a lot of racket, and I got neighbors, so I decided to quit that night. So I guess maybe I'll get back to doing that. I'm not having a ton of luck getting this bent back in shape. I think I need to get some heat on it. I got a little propane torch. I don't have a real cutting torch. So I might try to add some heat just using my MIG welder. Put a little weld in here somewhere to add some heat, and then I can see if I can pound that down. It's just pretty damn, I don't know what this is, like 12 gauge metal, and it's kind of bent, you know, so it's pretty strong right there, and I don't have a lot of room to get, you know, anything really solid in there to back it up, to blow on it, you know, other than a little heel dolly. So I'll try to add some heat there. Another spot where it was ripped out, I got this one bent back pretty decently. Same thing, I'll do a little weld right there and then add a little heat, and then I can see if I can get this to bend down a little bit more right there. And that's probably a little big, but I might just try to fill it with weld just to make it look a little better. I might have to add a little metal in there too, we'll see. So we'll get the welder out and play with that stuff for a little bit and see what happens. All right, well, I broke the welder out and tried to mess with these spots where the frame was ripped. Once I added some heat, I was able to bend, there it is, bend the metal back a little bit. I still couldn't get this woohoo out of the top of this, but I got it bent back to where it's supposed to be a little bit anyways, and I don't know, it doesn't really matter. This isn't a show car. I just thought being I had access to it, I'd weld up these rips. So get the grinder out and make those look a little better than they do there. And then we'll say that's good enough, because that's all we're going for. Good enough. All right, done messing around with these little frame repairs. Kind of shooting into the sun here, so I don't know how well you can see that. But said I never got the little wahoo out of there, but I filled in the little rip that was in the metal there. And then here's the other one. So anyways, not perfect, but better, and like I said, we're going for good enough. That looks good enough to me. All right, so there you have it. It's a couple days later. but I don't think I really did a very good follow-up on the pocket kit once it was finished. So I'm done with the frame regarding the pocket kit anyways. So showed you a little bit of this stuff obviously already, but there's the two front pockets, the shock bar, and then the rear end has the notches, and then the leaf spring hanger. The frame currently is upside down, so that leaf spring hanger will be is on top of the frame that fits between the frame and the body. And this is the other side. I don't know, I think it turned out decent. I'm not an expert welder like I've said before, but you know, I did that, and then I don't know if I put this in there, but I showed, you know, I did a couple little frame repairs. These are the afters. At some point I'll have showed the befores in there where those were ripped out. Now I need to go along and just see. I think there's a couple other little stress cracks in the frame. I may or may not remove the frame horns, I think they're called, where the rear engine mounts were. Still kind of struggling with that decision. I've started this is sandblasted, but then I've kind of started wire wheeling some spots where I've missed. So it just needs looked over, a couple little touch-up welds done, and then kind of final clean, and then should be ready for epoxy. So I need to get this finished up here one of these days. I don't have the epoxy on hand. I need to order that, so I need to wait for that to come. And we'll get this sprayed here soon. I'm going to spray it in SPI epoxy black. Seems like that seems to be a pretty popular choice. I like the way it looks from the pictures I've seen. So we'll see how that goes.